The moment you tell someone you've saved serious money, something changes that most people never notice. And it doesn't change loudly or dramatically. It changes quietly, almost invisibly, in a way that slowly reshapes your behavior, your relationships, and your financial decisions over time. At first, everything feels normal. You think you've simply shared a milestone. Maybe you mention you've saved $50,000 or crossed $100,000 in investments. It feels like a moment of pride, something worth acknowledging. People react positively. They congratulate you. They nod. And then, life moves on as usual. But what actually changes is not in their reaction. It's in the recalibration that starts happening inside their minds, and eventually inside yours. Because the moment your financial position becomes known, you are no longer just a person building wealth quietly. You become a category, a reference point, a label that others unconsciously use to adjust their expectations of you. And that is where the real cost begins. Not in the announcement itself, but in everything that follows it. Human beings don't process money purely as numbers. They process it as identity. So when someone learns you have savings or investments, they don't just update a fact in their mind. They build a story around it. They assign meaning to it. And once that meaning exists, it starts influencing behavior in subtle but powerful ways. This is where people usually talk about lifestyle creep. But that term doesn't fully capture what's happening. It sounds slow and accidental, like something that just drifts upward over time. What actually happens is more structured than that. It behaves like a social ratchet, one direction only. Every visible signal of financial success pushes expectations slightly higher, and those expectations rarely move back down. Because once people know you have money, they don't unknow it. And once you start behaving like someone who has money, you don't easily stop behaving that way. That creates a loop, a reinforcing cycle where identity and behavior start feeding into each other. And that loop is what slowly drains wealth over time. Not through one big mistake, but through hundreds of small adjustments that feel completely reasonable in isolation. For example, imagine someone builds up $80,000 in savings. For years, nothing changes about how they're perceived. They're just a normal person who spends carefully and saves consistently. Then one day, in a casual conversation, they mention their progress. Nothing dramatic, no bragging, just honesty. At first, nothing seems different. But over time, something subtle begins to shift. Friend groups start choosing slightly more expensive restaurants. Social plans become a little less cost-sensitive. Conversations around money change tone. And without anyone explicitly saying it, a new expectation forms. This person is financially stable. And once that expectation exists, behavior adjusts around it. But here's the part most people miss. It's not just that others treat you differently. It's that you start responding to that treatment automatically. You begin acting in alignment with the identity that has been assigned to you. This is called identity-consistent behavior, and it is one of the strongest invisible forces in personal finance. Once you are seen as the one who is doing well, you subconsciously avoid acting like someone who is not. You don't want to contradict the perception. You don't want to break the image. So you start absorbing small costs. You say yes more often. You justify spending differently. And over time, these micro decisions accumulate into real financial impact. Individually, each decision feels insignificant. It's just one dinner, just one trip, just helping out once. But money does not track individual moments. It tracks repetition. And repetition is where wealth quietly leaks. There is also another layer to this that people rarely consider. Once your financial position becomes known, you stop being just a person in social situations. You become a reference point. And reference points change behavior around you without any direct conversation. People begin to assume things, that you can cover this, that you won't mind paying for that you're the one who's doing fine. And those assumptions don't always come in the form of direct requests. Sometimes they appear as silence or hesitation or indirect expectation. And the human brain is not built to ignore those signals easily. Most people will choose financial cost over social discomfort without even realizing it. Humans have a strong psychological need for consistency. Once you identify as someone who is financially successful or responsible, your subconscious begins protecting that identity. That means you start making decisions that align with how you see yourself, even if those decisions cost more. You might spend slightly more to avoid feeling cheap. You might avoid saying no to maintain the image. You might make choices that reinforce your perceived status rather than your actual financial goals. And none of this feels like a conscious decision. It feels normal. It feels like you are just being yourself. The deeper issue is that once this identity is established publicly, it becomes extremely difficult to reverse without friction. Because people don't easily update their perception of you downward. If they think you are financially comfortable, any shift away from that expectation feels like a change that needs explanation. Now, contrast this with financial privacy. When people do not know your financial position, none of these pressures activate in the same way.